Yes, people, this is another edition of Let's Make St. Lucia Great Again. And if St. Lucia has to be great again, we have to be very careful what we eat, how we eat, and we have to be very careful with our health. A long time ago, I noticed that there have been a certain level of slackness as it relates to crayfish, the way we catch it. A long time ago when I was a kid, when I was a child, sometimes when we were in the river, I would see like the crayfish just, some of them would just be jumping up, some of them just coming on the land. Because apparently what happened is some people would chlorinate the water. They didn't want to go through the process of actually catching the crayfish, pushing their hands in under the rocks or in the holes in the river to catch the crayfish. So some of them would just chlorinate the water, and you would just see a lot of crayfish would just, some of them would just be floating, some of them would just be, just jumping around. And that process of messing up the water quality in order to catch crayfish has not stopped. And so it is very important that people who buy crayfish from other people, that they be careful. You need to ask these people how they caught these things that they bring into you, especially during major events like Junior Creole. What is happening, actually I know that is happening. What some people do is, there's a product called karate, it's an insecticide, and they would take that karate, drop some of it in the river, and they would run down. They would run downstream, and they would start picking up and picking up crayfish, because that would the karate would incapacitate the crayfish, and it would be easier. They would just be picking up crayfish and put it in their containers or whatever it is that they have. So when I had my shop, I used to sell chemicals for farming and things like that. There have been a few occasions where certain people would come and they would tell me that they want to buy karate, and I would be asking them what it is that they want it for, because I know some of those guys did not have farms. And because the reason is because I found out that that's what they were using it for. So it is very careful. It is very important that people become very vigilant. You do not just go and buy crayfish from people. You have to ask them where it is that they get those things from. And I'm almost persuaded that some of the people who sell crayfish to people for Junior Creole, some of them are actually getting those crayfish by dropping some things in the water. And these are some of the things that we need to stop, we need to avoid. Just to make a buck, you cannot be messing up the quality of the water and probably ultimately affecting the health of people just because you want to sell crayfish. Now, these are not things that you hear about, but these are things that we need to be serious about, and we need to be ensuring as citizens that we discourage people from doing those things. To make St. Lucia great again, as it relates again to our health, we need to be talking to the farmers, and some of the farmers need to be more conscientious. Because one time there's a guy, he had just sprayed his tomatoes with some insecticide, and the man harvested. Somebody called him for tomatoes, and he harvested the tomatoes to sell. And I was very angry that day, because after you spray these insecticides, you have to wait for 7 days before you can harvest. 7 days. So, but what happened is, I actually saw one guy, I know of one guy who did that. And so I was wondering, is that something that is more commonplace in the community? Is that something that has been more widely practiced than what I actually think? And so for that reason, I spent a good while not eating vegetables. And the only place I was probably getting vegetables from was, there's a lady in the Castries market. I know for a fact that that lady does not use harsh chemicals. And so I used to buy vegetables from her. But I was very much discouraged by this one person. I'm saying, if it is that this guy can do it, I wonder how many other people are doing it. So we need to be educating the farmers, and we need to be talking to them, discouraging them from practicing these these are immoral principles, immoral practices, and we need to kind of ensure that these things are not practiced in the society. So for that reason, it is worth mentioning that it is very important that we need to go into more organic farming, especially as it relates to vegetable production, organic or semi-organic farming. Because when you really look at it in terms of land space, we do not have all that big, those large expanses of land as compared to other countries. And so these people are able to produce some of these vegetables because the processes are very highly mechanized, and they can produce it at a cheaper price. You get more when you sell organic produce as it relates to, as compared to selling inorganic things that are sprayed with other chemicals. So one of the things we need to be trying to do in this country is we need to be encouraging the use of more organic products in our farming. We need to be more organic or semi-organic. We need to have our food being more wholesome.